For me, way of introduction, it starts somewhere around the end of October. I don't know if you go through this. It starts about the end of October. I'll go out to my car and look for something, and then certainly by the beginning of November, I realize that something drastically has changed. And by this time in November, darkness has really set in, and it is, to me, extremely difficult to deal with. I don't do well with it, and I've struggled for years with having to deal with it. As a matter of fact, I kind of joke about darkness in the Northwest is almost like committing a crime. I mean, I almost feel like I'm going to jail. I leave in the dark, I come home in the dark. It's like work release, parole, I don't know what it is, but it's miserable. It's no fun, and it can affect you. As a matter of fact, it does affect me. There's a thing called seasonal affective disorder. Had to read it because I can't say it and remember it. But it is a mood disorder, and it affects your mental health, and it causes all kinds of problems and hopelessness and worthlessness and thoughts of suicide and interest in activities. I mean, you can really go into the tank, and if you do this in November like I do, you have to really keep your eye on this because it can really affect who you are and what you're doing. But so I regulate it with a lot of exercise and try to eat a little bit better during the winter, and it actually has really changed my winter. Still difficult though, I gotta say, it's still difficult. Well, you and I live in a dark world, don't we? Darkness is all around us. We don't see it, we see light. We don't see the dark world, particularly living in the Seattle area. But I just want to mention some of the darkness that's going on out there. In children between 10 and 14, the leading cause of death right now is suicide. Suicide between 10 and 14, and they connect that to social media. And the life expectancy actually just went down this last year. For the first time in decades, life expectancy went down, and the main cause of that is suicide. So there's a lack of hope, there's a darkness out there that is seriously affecting our society around us, and we have a part to play in it, our little responsibility. Thomas Kincaid, how many remember who he is or was, and the painter of light, famous painter of light. And I just love his paintings because they always show these cabins and these, whatever they are, and this light that coming in to homes and all. Thomas Kincaid committed suicide, the painter of light, if you can imagine that. And I want to relate one last story in introduction. When I was a young kid, I could look down 23rd Street of my hometown, and during the wintertime, about Marshall's age, I'd look down and I could see the Anaconda Copper Company ran this whole section called Black Eagle across from my town, and they would light up the whole hill with Christmas lights. And I remember thinking, oh, Christmas is now here. It's going to be different. It's going to be better, and it's going to really change our lives, make us feel better, make us be a better family. And of course, that doesn't really happen. You and I'll light the Sabbath candles every week. I'll light the Sabbath candles as a recognition of God's light in our life, right? And then some of us here or out there will actually do Hanukkah candles and light those candles. There's lights all around us, but those are all temporary lights, aren't they? They're all temporary lights, and they eventually get blown out or put out or packed away. So what I want to talk to you today, if I can, is about light. I want to talk to you about light. Because as we head into a dark season, and we certainly live in a dark world, we have to see light and be light. See light and be light for certain. The people at this time of year do suffer from depression. And I want you to turn over to John, the book of John, 1 John. Now, most people will tell you the book of 1 John is all about love, and it is. And John was a great writer about love. You can learn a lot about love in 1 John. But the book's also about light. John writes a lot about light. As a matter of fact, the Bible talks a lot about light. Very, very important. We're going to start in 1 John 1, verse 5. 1 John 1 and verse 5. I'm going to read this. And by the way, I'm reading all my scriptures from the complete Jewish Bible. So it may read a little different, but it has great impact and great reading to it. 1 John 1 verse 5 says, "This is the message which we've heard from him and proclaimed to you, that God is light, and there is no darkness in him, none. God is the true author of light, the true source, isn't he? There is no darkness in him." Are you light? Is that part of God in you? And are you going to be a source of light, and particularly in this wintertime, and obviously in this time of age where darkness just seems to continue to surround us? Do we walk in light? Well, there's a progression here that John actually, all the answers are in 1 John. There's actually a progression of walking from darkness into light and being the light that God expects us to be. First thing is we have to admit our sin. Now, this is a process of conversion. It's a process of calling, but this is how we walk to light. 1 John 1 verse 8, we admit our sin, first thing. If we claim that we don't have sin, we are deceiving ourselves and the truth is not in us. If we acknowledge our sin, then since he is trustworthy and just, he will forgive them and purify us from all wrongdoing. For if we claim to have fellowship with him while we are walking in darkness, we are lying and not in the truth. We're not in the light. If we don't start here and admit that as human beings, as who we are before we were called, or as we're called, that we don't have sin, we're continually walking in darkness. And this darkness means deceit. It means we're deceiving ourselves. We're deceiving ourselves to think that maybe we're walking in a little more light than we are. Admitting our sin is the very first step to walking toward and being that light. The second thing, we must not love the world or we hate the world. Now, what I mean by that, and those are harsh words, Romans 12, verse 2, but also 1 John 2, verse 15. As long as you're there, just stay there. We have to learn to not love this world, brethren. If we're going to be lights, we have to learn not to love the world. 1 John 2, verse 15 says, do not love the world nor the things in the world. If someone loves the world, then the love of the Father isn't in him. You're not that light. You're not going to be light if you spend all your time thinking about all the things in the world. Because all the things of the world, the desires of the old nature, the desires of the eyes, and the pretentiousness of life are not from the Father, but of the world. We cannot be lights if we love the world. In this things, because of all things of the world, well, we had our things day yesterday, didn't we? Black Friday. It's our things day. We spend time bowing our heads on Thursday, and then we beat each other up getting our TV sets on Friday during Black Friday. Every Friday morning after Thanksgiving, I opened up the paper, and it was there again today. People are fighting over these deals, right? The things of the world. And, I'm older again. Back in the day, the things that we saw were in a catalog. Occasionally, it would come to the house once a year. And then we moved in the 80s, and the things we saw were advertisements. Now we have a tool that we literally can look at and have our mind on and see in front of us all of the time that just tell us and show us the things of the world. We have to separate ourselves from those things. We have to hate the ways of the world, not hate the people, but hate the desires of the world and hate the things of the world and the inappropriate way of pursuing those things, I should say. It's not to hate those things or good things out in the world. There's a lot of good things. We have our minds on those things. We're just simply, if we're going to focus on those things, we're not going to be a light. The third thing is you can't hate your brother. You can't hate your brother and be in the light. This is all in 1 John. We think of it as a love book, but it is also the light book. You can't hate your brother. If you still are in hate, you can't work your way out of that. That's something that has to happen. You can't hate your brother. And the fourth thing is we move out of darkness and into light. It's a really important one, obviously academic. We must acknowledge our Savior. We must acknowledge who we depend upon. It isn't our light. We must acknowledge that we need Jesus Christ in our life. We can't be a light to the world. We must acknowledge our Savior. 1 John 2 and verse 22, we'll start there. Who is a liar at all if the person who denies that Yeshua is the Messiah? Yeshua, Jesus Christ. Such a person is an anti-Messiah. He's denying the Father and the Son. Everyone who denies the Son is also without the Father, but the person who acknowledges the Son has the Father as well. My children, I'm writing you these things so that you won't sin, but if anyone does sin, you have the Messiah who pleads our cause from the Father. Next step, admitting your sin, not hating your brother, not loving the world. Have to acknowledge that Jesus Christ is your personal Savior. And I know we all do this, right? We all go through these different levels and degrees of process, but this is one of those things he talks about in being a light. Number 5. This is how we show, and Matthew 5 kind of reflects this too, but this is how we show our light somewhat. Number 5, we must obey him. But if someone keeps doing what he says, then truly the love of God has been brought to a goal to him. And this is how we are sure we're united with him if we obey him, staying in that light. So no one remains united with him, continues sinning, and everyone who does continue to sin, neither seen him or known him. Brethren, you and I know that we can't be lights if we don't obey God. You just can't. It just doesn't work. Over a period of time, you may have periods in your life that you're doing well and you're kind and you're doing all the things that we're supposed to be doing. But if you continue in sin, eventually that light will be put out. Number 6, must walk as he does. Well, this is the key, isn't it? This is the key. We think, we meditate on who Jesus is and how he walks. 1 John 2, verse 6, a person who claims to be continuing in union with him ought to conduct his life as he did. If we claim to have fellowship with him while we are walking in darkness, that's that deceit, we are lying and not living out the truth. We're concealing or misrepresenting the truth. But if we are walking in light, this is kind of where it comes to, as he is in light, then we have fellowship with one another. And the blood of his son Yeshua purifies us all from sin. We have to walk like Jesus does. We can't walk like we do. We can't walk like something the world says we're supposed to. We can't walk by our own will and our own thoughts. We have to walk as Jesus did, to be a light. John had his mind on light, and I'll just refer to in the book of John 1, verse 7, he became a testimony to bear witness concerning light, so that through him everyone must put his trust in God and be faithful to him. If we are representing the truth properly, I love how this is written. If we are representing the truth, and that's the whole truth of God, not just what we think we know, we are walking in light. John 8, verse 12, Yeshua said to them again, I am the light of the world, and whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but we will have the light which gives us life. Representing the truth is not just declaring what is right, but walking in it. So we'll light the Sabbath candle. And okay, so the reason this is important is we're in a season of lights. We're going to see a lot of lights. We're going to see a lot of, I string up those Costco lights all over my house and we flick them on. I mean, I do everything I can to try to not make it feel so dark. And we're going to see a lot of Christmas lights. We'll see a lot of lights out there for whatever reasons. You and I are called to be the true light. We're called to represent the true light. I want you to look upon those lights as you do. And I thought David did a great job a few years back at talking about how those are really false lights. They represent a false belief. Okay, so we can see these lights and we can look at them and we can think to ourselves, okay, am I really being a light? Am I really being like Jesus Christ? As a reminder, because that's what you're going to see. If lights go out, you're going to see lights all over the place. And let it be a reminder to you. The Sabbath candle is not a permanent light. It helps me. It helps my family to start the Sabbath. And the Hanukkah candles will eventually burn out. Sorry. Christmas lights will eventually be taken down, won't they? None of these are permanent lights, but there is a permanent light, which is God the Father and Jesus Christ. Brethren, you and I have been called to light in an increasingly dark world. We have a choice to make to be different and be light. I read a quote somewhere just recently. It said, if you help a Christian be a better Christian, just one, you're being a better Christian, right? You help somebody else in their own walk to be a better light. Encourage somebody to actually talk positively, to smile more often, to walk the way he walked. You're actually being a light in that way. Your words are so important. Words can create life and it can kill life, right? So there is a light, and it's Jesus Christ and God the Father. It's up to us to represent that. So be determined, brethren, to help others out of their deceit, now their darkness. That's what we're here for. In part is, listen, we've got to shoulder one another's burdens. We've got to help each other, through those dark times and those times where we're not doing the things we should be doing. And it was God's will from the beginning. The very beginning of the Bible starts out and said, let there be light. God said, let there be light. And the very, very end of the Bible reads in Revelation, the city has no need for sun or moon to shine on it because God gives a light and it's his lamp. Its lamp is the Lamb. The nations will walk by light and the kings of the earth will bring splendor to it. God's will has always been about light. It's always been about helping you and I to shed his glory and to show that light. So as we head into the darkness and the dark season, to make it better for you and I, as some of us suffer from this, be God's light to those around you and help them in the process. And as you see the lights during this season, they are not the answer. They're just a reminder that there is one light, one hope, And you have a big responsibility to share that light, the light he has given us all through his living word.